can't repeat the past?" Jay Gatsby cried out. "Why, of course you can!" He believed in these words with his entire soul and built his whole life on that single illusion. This is the story of how our greatest dreams can lead to our inevitable destruction. Now, before we dive into that world of glamour and tragedy, if you enjoy these retellings, please take a moment to hit that like button. It really does help us a lot. And so, our story begins.
The story begins in the summer of 1922, narrated by Nick Carraway, a young man from a prominent Midwestern family, seeking to escape the provincialism of his home and learn the bond business. Nick moves east to New York. He rents a small, weather-beaten bungalow in the village of West Egg on Long Island. West Egg is described as the home of the new rich, people who have acquired massive wealth recently but lack the social connections and aristocratic pedigree of the old money families. Directly across the bay lies East Egg, the fashionable and exclusive district where the established aristocracy resides. Nick's house, though modest, is squeezed between two massive mansions. The one to his right is a colossal affair, an imitation of a French Hotel de Ville, complete with a marble swimming pool and 40 acres of lawn and garden. This palace belongs to the enigmatic Jay Gatsby. One evening, Nick drives over to East Egg to have dinner with his cousin, Daisy Buchanan, and her husband, Tom. Tom was a college acquaintance of Nick's at Yale, a powerfully built man hailing from an enormously wealthy family. He is arrogant, aggressive, and exudes a sense of cruel power. The Buchanans live in a cheerful red and white Georgian colonial mansion overlooking the bay. Inside, Nick finds Daisy lounging in the living room with her friend, Jordan Baker, a professional golfer with a cynical, bored demeanor. Daisy is charming, possessing a low, thrilling voice that captivates men, though she seems to hide a deep sadness behind her bright eyes. During dinner, the tension is palpable. Tom launches into a racist diatribe about a book called The Rise of the Colored Empires, revealing his deep-seated insecurities and bigotry. The awkwardness culminates when the telephone rings. Tom leaves the table to answer it, and Daisy follows him. Left alone with Nick, Jordan reveals a scandalous secret. Tom has a mistress in New York. Later, Daisy confesses her unhappiness to Nick. She describes the moment her daughter was born, saying she wept and hoped the child would be a beautiful little fool, implying that for a woman in their society, ignorance is the only path to happiness. When Nick returns home to West Egg that night, he sees his neighbor, Gatsby, standing alone on his dark lawn, reaching his arms out toward the dark water. Nick looks out to see what Gatsby is reaching for, but distinguishes nothing except a single green light, minute and far away, that might have been the end of a dock. Between the Eggs and New York City lies a desolate industrial wasteland known as the Valley of Ashes. It is a gray, dusty stretch of land where ash from the city's coal furnaces is dumped. Presiding over this grim landscape is a billboard featuring the fading, gigantic blue eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg, an oculist, which stare down broodingly over the gray land. One afternoon, while traveling to the city by train, Tom forces Nick to get off at the Valley of Ashes to meet his mistress. They go to a rundown garage owned by George Wilson, a spiritless, beaten-down man. His wife, Myrtle Wilson, is the complete opposite, a woman of smoldering vitality and sensuality. She is Tom's mistress. Tom arranges for Myrtle to take the next train to the city so they can meet. In New York, the trio goes to the apartment Tom keeps for his affair. Myrtle transforms from a mechanic's wife to a haughty socialite, buying a puppy and inviting her sister, Catherine, and a neighboring couple, the McKays, for a party. The afternoon dissolves into a haze of whiskey and cigarette smoke. It is a scene of grotesque vulgarity, contrasting sharply with the refined, albeit cold dinner at the Buchanans. As the alcohol flows, Myrtle becomes increasingly obnoxious. She begins to chant Daisy's name to provoke Tom. Daisy, Daisy, Daisy. In a sudden flash of violence that exposes his brutal nature, Tom strikes Myrtle across the face with an open hand, breaking her nose. The party ends in chaos, with Myrtle bleeding and wailing. Nick, drunk and disgusted, leaves the apartment and eventually takes takes the early morning train back to Long Island. Throughout the early summer, Nick observes the spectacle occurring next door. Every weekend, Gatsby's mansion lights up like a carnival. Crates of oranges and lemons arrive on Fridays, caterers set up buffet tables garnished with glistening hors d'oeuvres, a full orchestra plays under the stars. The world and its mistress come to Gatsby's parties, uninvited, to drink his champagne and swim in his pool. Finally, Nick receives a formal invitation. He attends the party, feeling out of place among the swirling, drunken crowd. He runs into Jordan Baker, and together they navigate the chaotic scene. Rumors about their host abound. Some say he killed a man. Others say he was a German spy during the war. Wandering into the library, they meet a middle-aged man with owl-eyed spectacles, owl eyes, who is drunk and marveling that the books on the shelves are real. He expected them to be cardboard props, suggesting that Gatsby is merely staging a grand delusion. Later, outside in the garden, Nick strikes up a conversation with a man about their shared experience in the war. The man smiles, a rare smile with a quality of eternal reassurance, and reveals himself to be Jay Gatsby. Gatsby is surprisingly young and speaks with an elaborate formality, calling Nick old sport. He does not drink and seems to stand apart from his own party, observing his guests with a vigilant, detached air. At the end of the night, Gatsby asks to speak to Jordan alone. She emerges from the meeting amazed, telling Nick she has heard the most amazing thing, though she cannot reveal it yet.
As July arrives, Gatsby begins to befriend Nick, taking him into New York City in his spectacular cream-colored car. During the drive, Gatsby attempts to clarify his past, sensing Nick's skepticism. He spins a fantastical tale. He claims to be the son of wealthy people in the Middle West, specifically San Francisco, which Nick notes is not in the Middle West. Educated at Oxford, a war hero who collected medals from every Allied government, and a man who lived like a prince in Europe, trying to forget a sad thing that happened to him. Nick initially finds these stories almost comical in their absurdity. However, Gatsby produces a medal from Montenegro and a photograph of himself at Oxford, momentarily silencing Nick's doubts. In the city, they have lunch with a shady character named Meyer Wolfsheim. Wolfsheim is a small, flat-nosed Jew with cuff buttons made of human molars. He is introduced as a gambler and the man who fixed the World Series back in 1919. This association casts a dark shadow over Gatsby's wealth, suggesting that his money comes not from inheritance, but from the criminal underworld. As they leave the restaurant, they bump into Tom Buchanan. Gatsby shakes hands with Tom, but looks visibly terrified and disappears moments later. Later that afternoon, Nick meets Jordan Baker for tea. She finally reveals the secret she learned at the party. She tells Nick the story of her youth in Louisville in 1917. Daisy was the most popular girl in town, and she had a brief, intense romance with a young military officer named Jay Gatsby. However, Gatsby was sent to war, and Daisy eventually married Tom Buchanan. Jordan recalls finding Daisy drunk and sobbing in the bathtub on the day of her bridal dinner, clutching a letter from Gatsby. She wanted to call off the wedding. Yet, the next day, she married Tom without a word. Jordan explains that Gatsby bought his mansion in West Egg solely to be directly across the bay from Daisy. The green light Nick saw him reaching for was the light at the end of Daisy's dock. Gatsby has a favor to ask. He wants Nick to invite Daisy to tea at his cottage so Gatsby can accidentally drop by and see her. He wants the meeting to be at Nick's house so Daisy won't know he is coming. Nick agrees to the plan. On the day of the meeting, it is pouring rain. Gatsby sends a gardener to cut Nick's grass and has a greenhouse worth of flowers delivered. When Gatsby arrives, he is dressed in a white flannel suit, silver shirt, and gold-colored tie, but he is pale and trembling with nervousness. When Daisy arrives, the tension is excruciating. At one point, Gatsby leans against the mantelpiece and accidentally knocks a clock over, catching it with trembling fingers, a heavy symbol of his clumsy attempt to manipulate time. He acts like a frantic child, telling Nick it was a mistake to come. Nick scolds him, telling him he's acting rudely by leaving Daisy alone. Nick leaves them alone for half an hour. When he returns, the rain has stopped. The change in the room is palpable. Gatsby is literally glowing with a new well-being, and Daisy has been crying but looks happy. The years of separation seem to have vanished. Gatsby invites Nick and Daisy over to his mansion. He wants to show Daisy what he has built for her. As they wander through the marble halls, the music rooms, and the gardens, Gatsby watches Daisy's reaction to everything. He values his possessions only insofar as they impress her. In his bedroom, Gatsby begins pulling out piles of imported
imported shirts of sheer linen and thick silk and fine flannel, throwing them onto the table in a multicolored heap. Suddenly, Daisy bends her head into the shirts and begins to cry stormily. "They're such beautiful shirts. It makes me sad because I've never seen such beautiful shirts before." It is a moment of pure materialism mixed with regret. She realizes the magnitude of Gatsby's devotion and perhaps the emptiness of her own choices. Looking out the window, Gatsby points out that the mist prevents them from seeing the green light. He remarks that the colossal significance of that light has now vanished. For years, it was an enchanted object. Now, it is just a green light on a dock. His count of enchanted objects has diminished by one. At this point in the narrative, Nick pauses the story to reveal Gatsby's true history to the reader, facts that Nick learned much later. Gatsby's real name is James Gatz. He was born on a farm in North Dakota to poor, shiftless parents. He never accepted them as his parents. In his own imagination, he was a son of God. At 17, he changed his name to J. Gatsby after rowing out to warn a wealthy yachtsman, Dan Cody, about an incoming storm. Cody took the young Gatz under his wing. For 5 years, they sailed the world. Gatsby learned the ways of the wealthy, but when Cody died, Gatsby was cheated out of his inheritance by his mistress. He was left with nothing but a thirst for wealth and the knowledge of how to behave like a gentleman. A few weeks later, Tom and Daisy attend one of Gatsby's parties. The evening is awkward. Tom is arrogant and suspicious, determined to find out how Gatsby makes his money. Daisy, unlike the other guests, is not impressed by the revelry. She finds the party vulgar and chaotic. She and Gatsby dance, but the magic is dampened by the presence of her husband. After they leave, Gatsby's devastated because Daisy didn't have a good time. Nick warns him, "You can't repeat the past." Gatsby cries out incredulously, "Can't repeat the past? Why, of course you can." He's determined to fix everything just as it was before. He wants Daisy to go to Tom and say, "I never loved you." Only then can they go back to Louisville and get married, erasing the last 5 years as if they never happened. As the summer reaches its peak, the atmosphere changes abruptly. The lights in Gatsby's house fail to go on one Saturday night. The parties cease entirely. Gatsby has fired all his servants and replaced them with shady individuals connected to Wolf solely to prevent gossip about Daisy, who now visits him frequently in the afternoons. On the hottest day of the summer, Nick takes the train to East Egg for lunch at the Buchanans. The heat is oppressive, almost suffocating. Inside the house, the tension is thicker than the humidity. Daisy and Jordan lay on the couches, weighed down by the heat. When Tom leaves the room to make drinks, Daisy kisses Gatsby on the mouth and whispers, "You know I love you." However, the reality of her life is present in the room. The nurse brings in her daughter, Pammy. Gatsby stares at the child with surprise. He never really believed in her existence because she doesn't fit into his dream of erasing the past. During lunch, Daisy complains of the heat and tells Gatsby, "You look so cool." The way she says it and the way she looks at him makes the truth undeniable. Tom sees the look. He realizes instantly that his wife and Gatsby are in love. His face reflects his shock and fury. To assert control, Tom insists they all drive into New York City. He forces a car switch. Tom will drive Gatsby's flashy yellow circus wagon with Nick and Jordan, while Gatsby will drive Daisy in Tom's blue coupe. On the way, Tom stops at Wilson's garage in the Valley of Ashes for gas. George Wilson is sick and pale. He tells Tom he needs money desperately because he has discovered his wife, Myrtle, is having an affair, though he doesn't know with whom. He plans to move her west immediately. Tom is struck by panic. In 1 hour, he has realized he is losing both his wife and his mistress. As they talk, Myrtle watches from an upstairs window. She sees Tom in the yellow car and mistakenly assumes that Jordan Baker, sitting next to him, is his wife. Her eyes burn with jealous terror. The group rents a suite at the Plaza Hotel to escape the heat. The room is stifling. The sounds of a wedding taking place downstairs drift up, adding a layer of irony to the impending destruction of a marriage. Tom begins to antagonize Gatsby, mocking his habit of saying "old sport." Finally, he asks directly, "What kind of a row are you trying to cause in my house?" Gatsby, feeling the moment has come, answers calmly. He tells Tom, "Your wife doesn't love you. She's never loved you. She loves me." He claims Daisy only married Tom because Gatsby was poor and she was tired of waiting. Tom denies this furiously. He recounts tender moments from their marriage. Gatsby demands Daisy deny them, urging her to say she never loved Tom. Daisy struggles. She is terrified. Under the pressure, she breaks down and admits to Gatsby, "I did love him once, but I loved you too." This admission destroys Gatsby. His dream required absolute, undivided love from the very beginning. Sensing Gatsby's vulnerability, Tom strikes the final blow. He reveals the source of Gatsby's wealth. He is a bootlegger who sells illegal alcohol over the counter at his drugstores. He paints Gatsby as a common criminal. Gatsby attempts to deny it, but his face betrays him. He looks for a moment like he has killed a man. Daisy draws away from him, frightened. She realizes the Gatsby is not the clean, romantic soldier she fell in love with, but something darker. Tom, seeing he has won and that Daisy's spirit is broken, contemptuously tells them to go home. Go on, he won't annoy you. I think he realizes that his presumptuous little flirtation is over. He sends Daisy and Gatsby back to Long Island in Gatsby's yellow car. Tom, Nick, and Jordan follow later in the blue coupe.
Night has fallen. In the Valley of Ashes, George Wilson has locked Myrtle in her room. She argues with him, screams, and rushes out into the dusk, waving her hands. She sees the yellow car coming, the car she saw Tom driving earlier that day. She runs toward it, thinking it is Tom stopping for her. The yellow car does not stop. It strikes her instantly, killing her, and speeds away into the darkness. When Tom, Nick, and Jordan arrive at the scene, a crowd has gathered. They see Myrtle's body, her life violently extinguished, her breast torn open. George Wilson is wailing in shock. A witness says it was a yellow car. Tom gasps. He knows instantly whose car it was. He grabs Wilson and violently assures him that the yellow car he, Tom, was driving earlier does not belong to him. They drive back to the Buchanan's house in silence. Tom, with tears in his eyes, mutters that Gatsby is a goddamned coward for not stopping the car. Nick stays outside the house, disgusted by the entire group. He finds Gatsby hiding in the bushes, waiting to make sure Tom doesn't hurt Daisy. Nick asks what happened. Gatsby reveals the final tragic twist. Daisy was driving. She was nervous, and when Myrtle ran out, she tried to turn away, but then turned back toward her. Gatsby tried to grab the wheel, but it was too late. However, Gatsby says he will take the blame. He is standing watch, waiting for a signal from Daisy, a flickering light if she needs help. Nick goes to check on the house. He looks through the pantry window. He sees Tom and Daisy sitting at the kitchen table with a plate of cold fried chicken and 2 bottles of ale. They are talking intently. Tom's hand covers hers. They are not happy, but they are not unhappy either. There is an unmistakable air of natural intimacy between them. They are conspiring together. Nick returns to Gatsby and suggests he go home. Gatsby refuses. He intends to wait there all night. Nick leaves him standing there in the moonlight, watching over nothing. Nick visits Gatsby the morning after the accident. The house feels enormous and dusty. The front door has been left open. Gatsby has stayed up all night, waiting for a signal from Daisy that never came. Nick urges him to leave town, warning him that the police will trace the car, but Gatsby refuses. He cannot leave as long as there is a shred of hope that Daisy might need him. In the quiet of the morning, Gatsby tells Nick the truth about his early days with Daisy. He describes how he felt like an imposter in her rich world, but he found himself breathlessly in love with her. Not just her person, but her value, her position, the safety of her wealth. He admits that he took her under false pretenses, letting her believe he was from the same social stratum. The gardener interrupts to say he plans to drain the pool because the leaves are starting to fall. Autumn is in the air. Gatsby stops him, saying, "I've never used that pool all summer." He decides to go for a swim. Before leaving for work, Nick turns back to Gatsby and shouts across the lawn, "They're a rotten crowd. You're worth the whole damn bunch put together." It was the only compliment Nick ever gave him, and he was glad he said it. Gatsby smiles his radiant, understanding smile one last time.
Meanwhile, in the Valley of Ashes, George Wilson is descending into madness. He has spent the night rocking back and forth, staring at the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg on the billboard. He tells his neighbor, Michaelis, that he has a way of finding out who owned the yellow car. He looks at the giant blue eyes and mutters, "God sees everything." To Wilson, the billboard is the face of a vengeful God who demands justice for Myrtle. Wilson sets out on foot. By midday, he has tracked the car to Tom Buchanan. Tom, fearful for his own life and eager to deflect blame, tells Wilson that the car belongs to Jay Gatsby. At 2 o'clock, Gatsby puts on his bathing suit and heads to the pool with an air mattress. He leaves instructions to be called if the phone rings. He is still waiting for Daisy. The phone does not ring.
Wilson glides into the estate like a ghost. He finds Gatsby floating on the mattress, looking up at the sky, perhaps realizing in those final moments the grotesque nature of a rose and how raw the sunlight was upon the scarcely created grass. Wilson fires the gun. The impact spins the mattress in the water. Then Wilson turns the gun on himself. Nick arrives to find the Holocaust was complete. Gatsby is dead, paying the ultimate price for a crime he did not commit for a woman who has already abandoned him. The aftermath is a study in loneliness. Nick takes charge of the funeral arrangements, frantically trying to find someone, anyone, who cared about Gatsby. Daisy and Tom have left town early, taking their baggage, leaving no address and sending no message. No flower, no note. Meyer Wolfsheim refuses to come, claiming he cannot get mixed up in a murder, revealing the cold pragmatism of the criminal world. Not a single one of the hundreds who drank his champagne calls or visits. One man calls only to ask for his tennis shoes back. The only person who comes is Gatsby's father, Henry Gatz, a frail old man from the Midwest. He is immensely proud of his son, showing Nick a ragged copy of a book, Hop Along Cassidy, in which a young Jimmy Gatz had written a schedule for self-improvement. It is a heartbreaking testament to Gatsby's discipline and his belief in the American dream. On the day of the funeral, it rains, pouring rain. Beside the grave stand only Nick, Mr. Gatz, the servants, and Owl Eyes, the man from the library. Owl Eyes wipes his glasses and delivers the perfect epitaph, "The poor son of a bitch." Nick decides to leave the East. The glamour has turned into a nightmare. Before leaving, he runs into Tom Buchanan on Fifth Avenue. Tom admits he told Wilson that Gatsby owned the car. Tom feels entirely justified, believing Gatsby killed Myrtle like a dog. He mentions how hard it was for him to give up the apartment he kept for Myrtle, framing himself as the victim. Nick realizes the truth about the Buchanans. They were careless people, Tom and Daisy. They smashed up things and creatures and then retreated back into their money or their vast carelessness, or whatever it was that kept them together, and let other people clean up the mess they had made. Nick shakes Tom's hand, feeling it is like shaking hands with a child. On his last night in West Egg, Nick wanders over to Gatsby's empty mansion. He goes down to the shore and looks out at the bay. He imagines the old island that flowered once for Dutch sailors' eyes, a fresh, green breast of the New World. He thinks of Gatsby's wonder when he first picked out the green light at the end of Daisy's dock. Gatsby had come a long way to this blue lawn, and his dream must have seemed so close that he could hardly fail to grasp it. He did not know that it was already behind him, somewhere back in that vast obscurity beyond the city. Nick concludes the story with one of the most famous lines in literature, reflecting on the human struggle to move forward while being tethered to the past. Gatsby believed in the green light, the orgastic future that year by year recedes before us. It eluded us then, but that's no matter. Tomorrow we will run faster, stretch out our arms farther. And one fine morning, so we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past.